when you think about things, chums, and you think sometimes things are best left. Do you know what I'm saying? And the thing about it is that sometimes when you're working in the world of show business, it's like that extra encore, isn't it? You know, another opening, another show. Should you give them one or leave the stage wanting them, while they want more? And this is part and parcel of the problem that really is affecting Meghan. She has all of these people around her, but nobody actually dares say, you know what, love, you're rubbish. We're not interested. Everybody's moved on. And of course, Meghan last week decided, even though we all were kind of thrilled, if you like, that this was the very final episode of Female Flounders or whatever it's called. Well, no, suddenly she dug up an extra episode, not with an A-lister, no, but with the mother. But this turned out to be her biggest and worst decision ever. Let me explain. Morning, welcome one and all. Nice to see you, chums. Thank you so much for joining me today in the very heart of London. I hope you're keeping well. And as ever, thank you for supporting all the videos. Welcome one and all brand new subscribers. It's fun, isn't it? As I say, when you work in this job, I find it hilarious because it doesn't matter how bad things are, whether it's Katy Perry's tour, that's just a disaster, or Beyonce, kind of now looking like Casper the Ghost in the posters rather than herself. You do think, what are you doing? You had a great opportunity, a great brand. Meghan, of course, was considered to be absolutely a grifter when she was signed up to Spotify. And as I've said, to get in a sort of brand of that caliber, and to be offered all of that money, you do not mess it up. It was a golden opportunity that Meghan decided she could do without, basically. What's interesting here, though, is as she's pushed and pushed forward and decided that, this was going to be the new her with Lemonada and all of her latest bits and pieces, she needed an extra star name. Now, Beyonce, whichever way you want to dress it up, is on something of a world tour, but she is still doing interviews and media stuff. It wouldn't have killed her to do an hour, even if it wasn't in the same studio with Meghan. Clearly, she can't stand her. You can dress it up any way you want, but it's all very well inviting her to a concert, if you did, and putting her in the cheap seats, if you did. Where was the inner circle? Where was the backstage picture? Now, what happened, if you know, of course, is that Meghan sat down with Beyonce's mother, right? And you kind of, I know I'm giggling, but you kind of think to yourself, right, so couldn't get Beyonce, maybe the cleaner next time, Now, Beyonce's mother is something of a matriarch. I've met her. And one of these women that, is very, very forceful. I liked her. We had a lovely dinner when she came over in the Ivy of all places. Very kind and very generous. Got on very well with Beyonce, actually, and Jay-Z. They were all right. This was at the very early periods of where she was becoming an international superstar after, of course, Destiny's Child. And she told me some funny tips about hairdressing and stuff like that. So that was the premise of this podcast, right? She was there to promote the book and the brand of hair care. The thing is, she wasn't having any of Meghan's guff, and it really turned into a car crash episode very, very quickly. And the problem that you have is when you have somebody who's more powerful than you, and you are the star, the leader, my golden rule, and it's nice to be able to share this with you, chums, is when I sit down with somebody to interview them, and I do that 2 or 3 times a week, in fact, is most of the time, my sort of guise is, what would the audience want to listen to? What questions can I ask that the audience might think, oh, that's a good one, I didn't know that. And you allow the guest to speak. Meghan doesn't seem to care about that, just talks all over everybody and wants to impart her own knowledge and her own wisdom and pearls and bon mots, right? But this is where I think this is fascinating. If you haven't heard it, she literally is a disaster. It really is a video, podcast, whatever you want to call it, that should never have seen the light of day. However, Beyonce's mother, right, she scored an own goal because she insisted that Meghan could not edit it. That was what it was had to stay. And they had to get it signed off by Tina Knowles before they could present it to the world. Tina came off of it brilliantly, as a sassy individual businesswoman, stroke author, mother of a pop icon, came out of it incredibly well. Meghan Markle came out of it like a wiped out Violeta floor cloth, was just useless. And this really, I would say, was, dare I put this unkindly? I think really this was the goal. If Meghan actually sat back and listened to it and thought, should I have done this? She can't get out of it because Tina's now given her time, and more importantly, she can't edit it because that was the deal. She got the final sign off. So suddenly on her own podcast, she's made to look an utter fool. Now, if that's a friend, what's an enemy? Neil Sean, Kensington, London.